Okay, so get this. Today we are going deep, like deep into the history of witchcraft.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
Yeah, right?
Eh,
I mean, forget those Halloween cliches. We're
Right.
going way beyond, the pointy hats and the bubbling cauldrons.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack it all with excerpts from a book called The History of Witchcraft, From Salem to Modern Times.
Very cool.
Yeah, have you ever, wondered where all that stuff even came from?
Well, for sure.
Like, why are we so captivated by witches, for centuries?
That's a good question.
It is, isn't it? So let's try to figure that out.
Let's do it.
What do you think?
It's funny because the image we have in our heads, like you were saying, it's almost like a caricature, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the thing is, witchcraft, it's been around forever.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Long before Salem, like way before.
Uh-huh.
We're talking ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, even Greece and Rome.
Wow. Okay. See, I always think of pyramids, philosophy, togas, you
Right.
know.
Exactly.
Not so much the witchcraft angle.
Not the first thing that comes to mind.
No, not really. But it does make sense when you think about it.
Oh, totally.
I mean, those cultures were all about spirituality,
Right.
trying to figure out the world, the universe.
Seeking answers.
Exactly. So they had what, shamans, wise women?
Yeah, those who could, bridge the gap, right?
Between us and the great unknown.
Totally. Like
Huh.
healers,
Yeah.
mediators between the physical and the spiritual.
So they were basically the OG witches.
I like that. Yeah, the original witches.
Right. I mean, is that a stretch?
Not at all. They were in tune with those forces.
So magic back then, it wasn't automatically evil or scary?
No, not at all. It was just part of life.
Really?
Yeah, interwoven with their everyday stuff, their beliefs, their practices.
So it wasn't like this fringe thing.
Not at all. It was mainstream, you could say.
Wow. And how do we even know that? Is there proof?
Oh, there's proof, all right.
Oh, all right.
You've heard of the Code of Hammurabi, right?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
One of the oldest legal texts we have.
Okay.
And guess what? It has laws against witchcraft.
No way.
Way. It shows you how seriously they took it, both the power of it,
Uh-huh.
but also the potential for, let's say, less than honorable uses.
That's why, really flips the script on how we usually think about witchcraft.
It really does. You're basically saying for centuries, magic was just normal.
Yeah, no big deal.
For many cultures, yeah. Think about the Celts, the Norse people.
Okay.
They had their druids, seers, the vulvas,
Yeah.
And those folks, they weren't feared. They were respected. They were leaders.
Really?
They guided people using their knowledge, their connection to the other side,
It's amazing how our view has changed, completely flipped.
I know, right? Think Vikings, Stonehenge, all that.
Yeah.
All tied to a history of witchcraft. Wild, huh?
Yeah, I'll never look at those the same way again.
Right. And get this, even in ancient Greece and Rome, they're gods. They're goddesses. Many were linked to magic,
Yeah.
like Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft,
I've heard of her.
or Hermes, associated with alchemy, divination.
Wow.
They were central figures, not some obscure footnote.
Okay, so for a long time, magic was just part of life, part of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know, right? Somewhere along the line, things get dark.
Oh, yeah.
When did that happen? And why?
Well, let's just say the rise of Christianity, that played a major role.
How so?
As it spread, it clashed, big time, with the existing pagan beliefs.
Okay.
Many of which, including magic, became demonized, seen as heresy.
So the church basically went on a campaign to wipe out anything that didn't fit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
What was once seen as divine or natural
Uh-huh.
became twisted, something evil tied to the devil himself.
That's a huge shift.
It is, and one of the, let's say, tools in this campaign was a text, the Malleus Maleficarum.
Okay, that title, it already sounds creepy, like chills.
It is. Imagine this. It's 1487. This book lands in the hands of a witch hunter, and it's written by a German inquisitor, Heinrich Kramer.
Okay.
But it's not just a book. It's a manual, a how-to guide on finding, interrogating, and punishing witches.
Wait, so this one book had that much influence? Seriously?
You have no idea. It was like
Yeah.
the witch hunter's Bible,
That's messed up.
totally fueled by religious extremism,
Yeah. Yeah.
and sadly a good dose of misogyny too.
Misogyny, so women were specifically targeted.
Oh, absolutely. They were the main victims of this whole thing.
It's awful thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Healers, midwives, women who knew about herbs, nature,
Yeah.
they held knowledge, power, and that became threatening.
So they were easy targets.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
Especially those who, challenged the norms, the power structures of the time.
It's tragic how something like healing, something good, could be twisted like that.
It is. And it shows you how fear, prejudice can be used to control, to oppress, especially women.
Yeah, it's a dark part of history, for sure.
It is. And speaking of dark parts of history, there's one case that everyone knows, the Salem witch trials.
Salem. I mean, just saying the name, it's like instant chills.
You got that right?
Yeah, Salem. It's like the ultimate witch hunt story.
It's become the poster child for the whole thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, mass hysteria, accusations, fear, the whole 9 yards.
And it's easy to see it as this isolated incident, right?
Right, like a community just went crazy.
Yeah, but there's always more to it, isn't there?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So what else was going on, like beyond the obvious?
Well, think about Salem in 1692. And it was like a pressure cooker.
What do you mean?
The Puritans, those settlers, they lived with this constant fear.
Oh,
The devil. Like he was everywhere, always trying to tempt them, corrupt them.
wow.
So that kind of religious, I guess you'd call it extremism, it created this atmosphere.
Where anyone could be accused.
Exactly. Anything different, anything out of the ordinary.
Became a sign of, like, demonic influence.
Right. It was like a tinderbox, waiting for a spark.
And that spark was, what, those teenage girls?
Well, they were part of it, but even then, the evidence they used.
Yeah, what was up with that? Like, how could you even accuse someone based on what?
This is where it gets really messed up. They used something called spectral evidence.
Spectral evidence. What is that?
Basically, dreams and visions that was admissible in court.
You're kidding, right?
Nope. So if you dreamt your nadir was tormenting you, like with their spirit,
Oh my God.
that was enough to accuse them. Can you imagine?
That's insane.
It's terrifying, right? The power that gave accusers and the fear for the accused.
It's like people's lives were at stake over a dream.
It's wild, right? And you could bet that led to some score settling.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like personal vendettas, using witchcraft as a weapon.
Absolutely. And often the targets were, well,
Women.
yeah, women who were outspoken, independent, those who didn't fit the mold.
So it wasn't just fear, it was about control, too.
Totally. Reinforcing power structures, silencing those who challenged them.
It's awful. And wasn't there something about, like, ergot poisoning?
Ah, yes, the ergot theory.
I've heard about that, but I'm not really sure what it is.
Okay, so ergot is this fungus that can grow on rye.
Okay.
And rye was a staple grain back then, so if you ate bread contaminated with ergot,
Yeah.
it could cause all sorts of symptoms, hallucinations, convulsions, even psychosis.
Wow. So people could be experiencing these really intense symptoms?
In their minds, in that religious context.
They'd think it was witchcraft.
Exactly. Imagine feeling choked, bitten, seeing things, and you're constantly being told about the devil.
Oh my God. It's like a recipe for disaster.
It really is this mix of societal anxiety, religious extremism, maybe even a biological trigger.
It's crazy how it all came together.
But thankfully, it didn't last forever.
How did it end? I mean, it couldn't have just stopped on its own.
Well, it's kind of ironic, actually. It started to unravel when the governor's own wife,
Wait, what?
yeah, she was accused of witchcraft. And suddenly, those in power, they started to question things.
It's amazing how perspective can change so quickly.
Right. Like it took someone close to them to make them realize this is out of control.
It's a powerful lesson, you know.
It is. So skepticism grew. The trials were stopped. Many were released.
But the damage was done.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Salem serves as this warning, this reminder.
About fear, extremism, the abuse of power.
Yeah. It shows how easily things can spiral, how we need to be vigilant, question authority.
Absolutely. But even after Salem, after those witch hunts in Europe,
Yeah.
fascination with magic, it didn't just disappear.
It didn't. In fact, it kind of came back with a vengeance in the 19th century.
Really? So like a revival.
You could call it that, yeah.
Yeah.
Think about the 19th century.
Okay.
Huge changes, the Industrial Revolution, people questioning religion, new scientific discoveries.
So a lot of upheaval.
Yeah, and in that, there was this longing for something more.
More than the material world.
Exactly. So we see spiritualism take off with its seances trying to talk to the dead.
That makes sense, trying to connect to something beyond.
Yeah, especially with all that change, people wanted comfort, connection.
So even with science advancing, that pull towards the mystical, it remained.
It did. It's like this part of us that needs mystery, that needs something beyond reason.
It's fascinating. But spiritualism wasn't the only thing, was it?
No. Alongside that, you had figures like Aleister Crowley.
Crowley.
Yeah, he was this, controversial occultist, developed his own system of magic called Thelema.
That sounds intense.
He was all about rejecting traditional morality,
Hmm.
self-empowerment, individual will.
Wow, that's a whole other level.
It is. And there were others, like Helena Blavatsky.
Okay, I've heard the name, but tell me more.
She was a Russian mystic, founded the Theosophical Society.
Okay.
They blended Eastern mysticism, Western esotericism, all sorts of stuff.
Sounds like a mix.
It was. They introduced ideas like karma, reincarnation, really influential.
So they were reviving ancient wisdom, mixing it with new ideas.
Exactly. A real melting pot of spiritual exploration.
It's incredible how all these threads come together.
It is. And this revival led to secret societies forming, too, like the Golden Dawn.
Secret societies. Now you're talking.
They practiced ceremonial magic, drew from ancient traditions, all very hush-hush.
Okay, so secret gatherings, rituals, ancient knowledge. It's like a movie.
It is, right. But how do we get from that to modern witchcraft? That's the question.
Yeah, seems like a big jump.
And to understand that jump, we need to talk about Gerald Gardner. Remember him?
Yeah, the father of Wicca, right?
That's him. And with him, things shift. Things become more accessible, more nature-based.
Okay, so Wicca is that bridge.
Exactly. It connects those older traditions to the modern witchcraft we see today.
So to understand that bridge, we need to understand Gardner and the birth of Wicca.
We do, and that's where we'll pick up next time.
Okay, so we're back and ready to like really dig into modern witchcraft.
Okay, let's do it.
Last time we were talking about Gerald Gardner, the so-called father of Wicca.
Right.
I'm still a bit fuzzy on who he was and how he fits into all of this.
Well, he's a bit of an enigma. His story is a little shrouded in mystery.
Like how so?
Well, he claimed to have been initiated into a coven, like a real coven of witches,
Whoa.
in the New Forest of England back in the 1930s.
Okay, so like real deal witchcraft stuff.
That's what he said, but whether it's all true, who knows?
Yeah, history can be tricky like that.
It can. But regardless, his impact is undeniable.
Okay, so what did he bring to the table that was so new?
Well, he basically brought witchcraft out into the open.
Whoa, that's bold.
It was. In 1951, keep in mind, witchcraft was still illegal in England.
Oh, wow.
He published a book, Witchcraft Today, basically a manifesto for a new kind of witchcraft.
And that was Wicca.
Exactly.
So he like went public with it even though it was risky.
Yeah, he did. But Wicca was different. It had a different vibe.
How so?
Remember those occult groups we talked about? Secretive, hierarchical?
Yeah, all about rituals and magic.
Right. Wicca was more about nature, about experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so less like ceremonial, more grounded.
Yeah, it embraced the seasons, the elements, the balance of masculine and feminine energy.
It's like a more like earthy approach.
Exactly. More accessible, more in tune with the natural world.
I can see the appeal in that.
And the core principles of Wicca, it's harm none.
Harm none.
Yeah, like minimizing harm to yourself, to others, to the environment.
So it's about being in harmony with nature.
Exactly. Not dominating it, but working with it.
That's a beautiful concept.
It is. And Wicca really took off in the 60s and 70s.
Why then, do you think?
Well, think about what was happening. The feminist movement, counterculture.
People looking for new ways of thinking, new ways of being.
Exactly. For many women, Wicca was empowering. It celebrated the divine feminine.
It's interesting how witchcraft went from being used to oppress women
to being a symbol of their power.
Yeah, that's quite a transformation.
It is. It shows how adaptable these traditions can be.
But Wicca wasn't just for women, was it?
No, it resonated with anyone seeking that nature-based spirituality, that connection to something bigger.
Okay, so as Wicca spread, did it stay like pure Wicca or did it change?
Well, it started to blend with other traditions like folk magic, hoodoo.
Hold on, folk magic, hoodoo, what are those?
So folk magic, it's basically those practices passed down, like generation to generation.
Okay, so like family traditions, things like that.
Yeah, like using herbs, charms for healing, protection, luck, you know.
Okay, and hoodoo?
Hoodoo is similar, but it originated in the African-American community.
Okay, so different roots.
Yeah, it also draws on African spiritual traditions. Really fascinating.
So it's like Wicca becomes this umbrella and all these other practices come in.
Exactly. That's why modern witchcraft is often called eclectic.
Makes sense. And of course, we can't forget about pop culture.
Oh yeah, movies, TV shows, they've played a huge role.
For sure. I mean, The Craft, Practical Magic, Charmed.
Those were huge. They made witchcraft seem, well, less scary, more mainstream.
Yeah, I was obsessed with those back in the day.
And now with social media, it's like a whole new world.
Witch talk and all that.
Right, spells, tarot, crystals, it's all out there.
It's really amazing how accessible it's all become.
It is. It's a global community now, people sharing, learning, connecting.
So as we wrap up this incredible deep dive,
Yeah.
what do you think is next for witchcraft?
I think we'll see even more personalization, more blending of traditions.
So like creating your own unique path.
Exactly. It's about empowerment, finding what resonates with you.
It's really more than just spells and rituals, isn't it?
It is. It's a way of seeing the world, of connecting to something bigger.
Yeah, it's about tapping into that inner power, that magic within.
Exactly. So as we close, I encourage you to think about what we've discussed.
Yeah,
What sparked your curiosity? What resonated with you? Maybe this has planted a seed.
a seed of magic.
Maybe. Maybe. Who knows? You might just discover your own connection to the magic that surrounds us all.
That's a great thought to end on. Thanks for taking this journey with us.
It's been a pleasure.